Jean J. Pusker, Associated Press. Good Monday. Here's what we're watching. Sears shares jumped after ESL called on the Sears to sell the Kenmore brand. Walmart is said to be close to gaining a majority stake in Flipkart. Mike Bloomberg opened his wallet for climate change. Learn more about transshipping, one of President Trump's big trade bugbears. Want this in your inbox each morning? Sign up here. Edward Lampert offers to buy Kenmore shares of Sears, holding up about 4% in recent trading after ESL Investments, the retailer's biggest shareholder, called on the Sears to sell the Kenmore brand and the chain's home improvement business. Lampert's fund also said it would be interested in buying the assets, according to a letter that ESL sent to Sears' board. We are interested in acquiring 100% of the equity of Ship and Parts Direct based on an enterprise value of $500 million. The purchase price would be paid in cash and Ship and Parts Direct would be acquired on a debt-free and cash-free basis with normalized levels of working capital. The letter notes that Sears has been trying to sell these assets for nearly 2 years but, with the exception of the Craftsman divestiture, has been unable to reach agreement with potential purchasers on acceptable terms. ESL also said it would be open to making an offer for Sears real estate, including the assumption of the $1.2 billion of debt obligations secured by such real estate. Mr. Lampert is Sears' chief executive. Kamal Krajinski, Reuters. Behind the bidding for India's e-commerce leader, the U.S. retail giant is reportedly close to buying a majority stake in Flipkart, the top e-commerce company in India, at a $20 billion valuation, according to Bloomberg. Existing investors like Tiger Global Management and SoftBank have agreed to sell substantial portions of their shares, giving Walmart a stake of 60% to 80%. Why it's important. Both Walmart and Amazon have hungrily watched India, where the e-commerce market trails only the US and China in terms of size, but where foreign retailers have struggled. But don't expect Amazon, Flipkart's biggest rival, to give up. Move over. Spotify. Tencent Music reportedly plans to interview potential underwriters for a U.S. IPO, with a valuation exceeding $25 billion, according to WSJ. It could also be the latest instance of a spin-off helping its Chinese parent's financial fortunes. Elsewhere in deals, Elliott Management wants Hyundai to reorganize its divisions and pay out more dividends. HNA cut its stake in Deutsche Bank amid its downsizing. How China is buying into Europe. Deutsche Telekom plans to fight Vodafone's plan to buy Liberty Media's German and Eastern Europe cable division. The parent company of poker stars agreed to buy Sky Betting. Fresenius walked away from its $4.3 billion deal for Acorn, a maker of cancer drugs. Newell settles with Starboard just over a month after cutting a deal with Carl Icahn, an agreement that Mr. Icahn,'s frenemy Bill Ackman said was a deal with the devil. The consumer brands conglomerate has reached an accord with Starboard Value as well. What's in the peace agreement? Newell will name 3 new directors. 2. Gerardo Lopez, the CEO of Extended Stay America, and Robert Steele, a former senior executive at Procter. The third, Bridget Ryan Berman, a former CEO of Giorgio Armani and executive at Google and Victoria's Secret, was agreed upon by Starboard and Mr. Icahn. How it came together. In a joint press release, Mr. Icahn said that Newell asked him to parley with Starboard. Key to reaching a truce was Mr. Icahn giving up 2 seats that he had taken on Newell's board. What the parties said about the deal. Michael Polk, Newell's CEO, this agreement will enable the company to now focus exclusively on the execution of our transformation plans and our efforts to strengthen our financial and operational performance. Mr. Icahn, I am pleased that we were able to facilitate peace between the company and Starboard. Given that the company has so many more pressing priorities, this is clearly the best outcome for all shareholders. Jeff Smith, Starboard CEO, we are confident this newly reconstituted board will bring a refreshed sense of urgency, oversight, and accountability to Newell. The market reaction. Shares in Newell were up over 3% in pre-market trading on Monday. Michael de la Mer said Sean Thew, EP at via Shutterstock. Mike Bloomberg opens his wallet to fight climate change even after the Trump administration withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. Mr. Bloomberg insisted that the U.S. keep up its financial obligations to the UN body overseeing the pact, using $4.5 million of his own money. I'm going to send them a check for the monies that America had promised to the organization as though they got it from the federal government. Mr. Bloomberg told CBS's Face the Nation, the former NYC mayor has shown he has no problem speaking out on his personal causes, even if they're in opposition to President Trump's policies. And he's willing to put his own money to work as well. What Mr. Bloomberg isn't doing, running for president at the moment. I think I can as a private citizen help in some of those things, and that's what I want to do with my life, he said. Yang Shanport in Shanghai. Associated Press. Meet the trading practice that Trump hates. If you talk China, I've watched where the reporters have been writing 2% of our steel comes from China. Well, that's not right, President Trump said last month before criticizing transshipping. The practice, which disguises the origins of metals and other imports, is a reason behind the US's fight with China, and the EU, South Korea and Canada have moved to crack down on illicit uses of the maneuver. Certain instances can be legal. Meanwhile, Stephen Mnuchin is weighing a trip to Beijing, in the hopes that talks could avoid a full-blown trade war. Elsewhere in trade, the EU and Mexico forged their own pact on Saturday, sending a message to Washington. And a trade war could hurt Google's Android. The political fly round an NYT investigation into Scott Pruitt's career before the EPA found close ties to lobbyists, and an instance of a house purchase involving a lobbyist, a shell company, and a questionable sale price. NYT Mike Pence's older brother, Greg, is running for Congress, and his stewardship of a local gas station operator that went bankrupt is taking fire. NYT, the Republican tax cuts sliced $18 billion off the book value of 100 big U.S. public companies, but that math may change as a lower tax rate takes hold. FD. Will Kellyanne Conway finally take a role in the White House Communications Department? Axios. Has the office of the presidency become too big to manage? The Atlantic. Richard Drew, Associated Press. Facebook's hot seat moves to Europe. Mike Schroepfer, the company's chief technology officer, will appear on Thursday before the British government committee investigating fake news and social media following the Cambridge Analytica scandal. No Mark Zuckerberg this time. Testifying tomorrow before that committee will be Alexander Kogan, the academic who passed user data to Cambridge Analytica. Mr. Kogan apologized for his role, but said he was considering suing Facebook for suggesting that he had acted unethically. The star witness last week, albeit in absentia, was the man who set up Cambridge Analytica's parent company decades ago. Elsewhere in Facebook, how the newsfeed played a central role in inciting violence in Sri Lanka. A deeper look at how much influence Campbell Brown, the former journalist who now leads news partnerships at the company, actually has. Jason Redmond, Agence France Presse. Getty Images. Amazon critics are wary of the newest ally. For years, the e-commerce giant has taken arrows from all corners, from labor unions to think tanks to competitors. Now President Trump has joined the fray, but not everyone is comfortable being on the same side. The issue, Mr. Trump's attacks appear rooted in personal animus, clouding what others feel are legitimate criticisms. Matt Stoller of the Open Markets Institute told the NYT, what he's doing is a threat to democracy, but so is Amazon. Elsewhere in Amazon news, the average Amazon employee is in a warehouse, not a data lab, and earns a median annual salary of $28,446. Many Americans believe the e-commerce titan has the most positive social impact of any big tech company, according to a new survey. Another survey found that more than half of Americans want more regulations of tech companies. Brian Kemp, who lost $300 because of a misdirected Zelle payment. Melissa Little for the New York Times. The problem with banks' answer to Venmo. It's the same issue that dogged Craigslist, PayPal and Venmo early on: fraud. Now Zelle, a payment service used by the likes of Bank of America and Chase, is grappling with what some analysts told the NYT is an alarming series of incidents. I know of one bank that was experiencing a 90% fraud rate on Zelle transactions, which is insane, said Genevieve Gimbert, a partner in PwC's Financial Crimes Unit. The problem: customers often aren't notified when money is transferred. Customers are subjected to phishing attacks that drain money from their accounts. Buyers have no protections if sellers don't provide paid for goods. Why it matters: banks want the share of digital payments, and 18 so far have signed up with Zelle. Elsewhere in finance, UBS's strong first-quarter earnings were overshadowed by the bank's wealth management unit missing estimates. Gary Gensler Kiana Simchak for the New York Times. The tech fly-around Gary Gensler has gone from Goldman Sachs trader to financial regulator under President Barack Obama to lecturer at MIT, where he plans to extol cryptocurrency's virtues and warn of the regulatory problems. NYT Meet the Kolian, a Russian cryptocurrency that is gaining favor in rural areas and being watched warily by Moscow. WSJ NewsGuard, a service that uses trained journalists to rate thousands of news and information sites, is starting a hotline for reporting fake news sites. Axios, major American consumer brand, said that Alibaba retaliated when they refused exclusive partnerships with the company. The Chinese e-commerce company has struck deals to get its digital assistant into Audi, Volvo and Mercedes-Benz cars in China. Google has been criticized for its responses to upcoming European data rules. FD electric scooters are causing havoc in San Francisco and LA. The CEO of one big maker, Bird Rides, says NYT, Australia's competition regulator, said it would examine contracts between Uber and the restaurants that use Uber Eats. Reuters, Flickr has a new owner. Yahoo unexpectedly sold the picture-sharing site SmugMug. Recode, The Speed read how Martin Sorrell's departure from WPP has set off an intense debate about the future of the ad industry. NYT, Matthew Barzoon, a former U.S. ambassador to Britain, will lead the new British media outlet set up by James Harding, the former head of BBC News. BuzzFeed, Volkswagen is trying to remake its company culture. It's not going so well. NYT, Brooks Brothers is celebrating its 200th anniversary with a return to tradition. NYT, no fewer than 9 groups have come together to work on a people's vote on whatever deal the British government negotiates with the EU. NYT, would love your feedback. Please email thoughts and suggestions to bizday@nytimes.com.